Let's be honest, being too friendly in today's world is not a strength, it's a trap. They smile at you, but they don't see your worth. They talk to you, but they don't respect you. Why? Because you made yourself too easy to reach, too quick to forgive, too available to be ignored. But the moment you stop being too friendly, something magical happens. They pause, they notice, they chase. And you rise. They tell you to be sweet, to always smile, to never offend. But here's the hard truth. Over-friendliness is often mistaken for desperation. It's a bitter pill, but once you swallow it, you start seeing people's true colors. You start understanding why the ones who give too much are always the ones who are left with the least. Think about it. In a group of friends, who's the one always arranging meetups? Checking in on everyone, remembering birthdays, being the glue. And who's the one they forget to invite when plans happen without you? The one who gave too much, the one who tried too hard, the one who was always too nice. You become predictable. And when you're predictable, you're replaceable. Why? Because you taught them you'll always be there, even when they don't show up for you. That's not loyalty. They're not admiring you. They're using you. And the moment you say no or pull back, suddenly you're changing or being rude. But no one talks about how they took you for granted. Imagine you're at work, you're the one staying late, picking up extra tasks, smiling through stress. Everyone sees it, but they don't respect it. Why? Because you're not making noise. You're just being nice. And nice doesn't get the promotion. Loud confidence does. That guy who talks big does half the work and never says yes to extra tasks, he gets noticed. Not because he's better, but because he never made himself invisible through over-availability. You made yourself small to keep peace. He made himself loud to claim space. And that's the game you're losing, by being too friendly. In relationships, it's even worse. The one who loves more, gives more, checks in more, usually ends up heartbroken. You text first, you plan the dates, you apologize even when you're not wrong, you forgive quickly just to keep them close. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny. You pretend to be okay when you're falling apart. All because you don't want to lose them. But guess what? You're losing yourself. And that's the saddest kind of loss. Look at social media. The person who replies to every DM, always leaves a heart on every story, always supports everyone's posts, suddenly becomes background noise. It's the person who's rare with their attention, the one who doesn't always show up, who is mysteriously absent sometimes. That's the person everyone wants to talk to, because their energy feels valuable. They don't throw it around like free samples. And that's the secret. Your energy is currency. Don't give out $100 bills to people who wouldn't toss a penny your way. You have to understand something deep. Humans don't chase what's easy. We chase what feels exclusive. If you're always available, always smiling, always agreeing, you're not special anymore. You're expected. You've trained the world to think you'll tolerate anything. And once people believe that, they stop respecting you. Respect comes from distance, from standards, from silence, from the courage to say, this is not okay with me. In life, you don't attract what you want, you attract what you reflect. And if you keep radiating desperation, in the form of over-friendliness, the world will give you breadcrumbs and call it love. You'll get temporary attention, not long-term value. Because no one values what is always available. They value what challenges them to rise, what makes them earn it, what sets boundaries, not just to protect, but to honor itself. Let your kindness have a backbone. Let your warmth have limits. Because when you're too friendly, you're not just giving people comfort, you're giving them permission to forget your worth. And that's a price too high for any soul to pay. Energy is expensive. Not in dollars, not in cents, but in peace, in time, in soul. And yet most people don't even realize they're giving it away, like it's unlimited. You wake up with a full tank, and by noon, not because you ran a marathon, not because you climbed a mountain, but because you were too accessible, too emotionally open, too willing to carry other people's chaos on your back while neglecting your own. You think that replying to every message, answering every call, showing up to every invite makes you loved? No, it makes you tired. And worst of all, unnoticed. Look around. There's always that one friend who listens to everyone's problems, but has no one to talk to when they break down. Why? Because people got used to them being the strong one. But strength doesn't mean you're a dumping ground. Being emotionally available doesn't mean you're everyone's therapist. That kind of constant output burns your soul out. You're holding the weight of 10 people and no one even notices you're sinking. You keep giving because you're scared that if you stop, they'll leave. But the truth is, the right ones will stay and the wrong ones were just using your light to find their way out of darkness. You ever sit in a room with someone and feel completely drained after, like the life has been vacuumed out of your chest? That's what an energy vampire does. They talk, complain, unload, repeat, while you absorb it all in the name of being kind. But kindness without boundaries is self-betrayal. You weren't born to be a sponge for toxic souls. You were born to glow, to create, to evolve. But you can't do any of that if you're constantly spending your energy on people who don't give a damn about protecting it. At work, you're overperforming, overcommitting, overgiving, because you think it'll finally get you the recognition. But no one claps for the person who never says no. They just hand them more tasks. You being the yes person isn't impressive. It's invisible. You think you're being valuable, but what you're really doing is draining yourself dry for people who would replace you in a heartbeat. Learn this truth. The ones who rise are not always the ones who give the most. They're the ones who manage their energy with precision. They protect their boundaries like sacred ground, and that's why their power grows. Shalalachte. In relationships, it's even more brutal. You pour your time, your love, your thoughts, your energy into someone who gives you crumbs. You stay up late comforting them. You cancel your plans to be available. You stretch your spirit to fit into their chaos. But they don't change. They don't see it. Because in their eyes, you're always there. And always means ungratefulness. People don't value constant access. They value mystery, distance, challenge. If you're always the first to call, the first to forgive, the first to check in, you become their habit, not their priority. And you deserve to be someone's piece, not their project. Even on social media, think about how you engage. You comment, like, repost, reply, all for people who won't even notice if you went silent for a month. You feed other people's egos while starving your own creativity. Instead of building your empire, you're cheering for theirs. Instead of investing in your own dreams, you're clapping for everyone else's highlight reel. And the worst part? Most of those people wouldn't even return the favor if the roles were reversed. Your energy is your aura. It's the unseen power that walks into the room before you do. It's what people feel when you say nothing. And if you waste it on people who don't protect it, you will eventually forget how powerful you really are. Because tired becomes your default. Overwhelmed becomes your normal. You weren't born to live like that. You weren't made to be drained and discarded. You were made to protect your light so fiercely that only those who deserve it ever get to feel it. Silence is the new power. Not because you're weak, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've mastered the art of restraint. Because you've understood that not every insult needs a reply, not every rumor needs clarification, and not every attack deserves your energy. In a world that screams for attention, where everyone is shouting over each other to be heard, your silence becomes a thunder that echoes louder than 1,000 words. It's a statement, it's a boundary, it's a weapon dressed as peace. Think about the last argument you had. You wanted to scream, to defend yourself, to prove your worth with loud declarations. But then what happened? You got more drained, more emotional, more hurt. Because not every battle is worth fighting. Silence doesn't mean surrender. It means elevation. It means you've risen above the noise, above the chaos. You don't have to prove your truth when you're walking in it. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them lie. The louder they shout, the more exposed they become. And the quieter you are, the more curious they get. That's power. That's control. At work, silence becomes your greatest strategy. You don't need to announce your every move, every plan, every goal. You just show up and deliver. While others boast and brag in meetings, you stay grounded, calm, strategic. And when results speak, your silence becomes undeniable. The loudest in the room isn't always the leader. Sometimes it's the most insecure. But the one who observes, who listens, who processes, that's the person people end up following. You're not here to be noticed. You're here to be unforgettable. And real power never chases applause. In relationships, silence speaks volumes. When someone disrespects you, the old version of you might have begged, explained, tried to fix it, but not anymore. Now you go quiet. You don't chase. You don't argue. You just remove yourself. And that silence, that absence, that void you leave, it's the loudest reminder of what they lost. Because nothing haunts a person more than the silence of someone who once cared deeply. Your silence becomes their mirror. It forces them to confront their actions without your voice softening the truth. And if they can live peacefully with it, then your silence just saved your energy for someone who won't take you for granted. The moment you stop begging to be seen, you start becoming magnetic. People notice the ones who pull back. It's human nature. What's rare becomes valuable. And your silence, it becomes rare air. Social media teaches us to overshare, to overspeak, to constantly update the world on our every move. But the more you talk, the more you give away your power. Mystery is magnetic. Privacy is luxury. Silence is seduction. The less people know, the more they wonder. The more they wonder, the more they watch. The most powerful people aren't always influencers. They're the ones you can't read, can't predict, can't manipulate. Because silence protects their peace and keeps their power intact. You weren't born to beg, to explain, to defend your every breath. You were born to know your value so deeply that silence becomes your favorite response. You don't need to say, "I'm not okay." Your silence says it. You don't need to scream, "I deserve better." Your absence screams it. You don't need to shout, "I've changed." Your energy shows it. When you stop reacting, you start commanding. Because in a world that wants you to be loud, being silent is the most rebellious thing you can do. You're not being rude. You're respecting yourself. There's a massive difference between being kind and being a doormat. And for too long you confused the two. You believed that saying yes to everything made you lovable, that allowing disrespect without reaction made you spiritual, that always being available made you loyal. But the truth, it made you exhausted. It made you invisible. And when you finally said no, when you finally put your foot down, people started calling you rude. But don't let that confuse you. That's not rudeness. That's self-respect. Finally speaking up. Think about the times you said yes when you meant no. You went to that event you didn't want to attend. You stayed on the phone for hours listening to someone else's drama while your own life was falling apart. You agreed to help even though your own plate was full. And after all that, you didn't feel appreciated. You felt resentful. Because kindness without boundaries always leads to resentment. Saying no doesn't make you cold. It makes you wise. Protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. When you set boundaries, people will get uncomfortable, especially the ones who benefited from you having none. They'll say, "You've changed." They'll say, "You're being difficult." They'll try to guilt trip you. But growth looks like distance to those who were only close because they could use you. You're not being rude for not replying instantly. You're not being disrespectful for choosing solitude over forced conversations. You're not wrong for walking away when your spirit feels drained. You're just finally choosing yourself. And that, for many people, is threatening. At work, you used to say yes to every request. You stayed late, did overtime, picked up slack, not because it was your job, but because you didn't want to be seen as lazy. But now you're realizing overworking is not a badge of honor. It's a sign of imbalance. You have every right to protect your time and energy. It's not rude to decline a task that isn't yours. It's not disrespectful to ask for what you deserve. You're not difficult. You're finally standing up for the version of you that forgot how to say "I matter" to. In relationships, you were always the one who forgave first, the one who made excuses for their bad behavior, the one who tolerated less just to keep the connection alive. But now, you're done lowering your standards just to keep someone comfortable. Now, when they ghost you, you don't chase. When they speak to you with disrespect, you don't explain, you exit. And they'll call you heartless, they'll call you rude. But those labels don't belong to you. They belong to their discomfort with your evolution. You're not rude for wanting reciprocity. You're not wrong for demanding emotional maturity. You're just finally honoring your worth. Even with family, you've learned to say "not today." You love them, but love doesn't mean tolerating toxicity. You no longer accept guilt as a tool to control you. You've learned that saying, "I can't talk about this right now," doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care about your mental health too. You're not the same person who sacrificed peace for approval. You're becoming someone who understands that true love honors boundaries. It doesn't punish them. And with friends, oh, it's loud. The moment you stop only called when they needed something, they disappear. And that silence, that's clarity. You're not rude for expecting effort. You're not arrogant for wanting depth. You're just done being the background character in everyone else's story. You want real, you want mutual, you want friendships that pour back into you. That's not selfish, that's sacred. This version of you, the one who pauses before saying yes, who protects their time, who honors their inner peace, that version isn't rude. That version is rising. And when people say you've changed, smile, because that's proof you're no longer bending to be liked. You're finally standing tall to be respected. Friendliness should never come at the cost of self-respect. There's a fine line between being kind and being used. And too many times, you've erased that line just to make someone else feel comfortable. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You nodded in agreement when your soul said no. You offered your time, your energy, your heart, not because they earned it, but because you were afraid of being labeled difficult, cold, or too much. But let me tell you, if your kindness demands the sacrifice of your dignity, it's no longer kindness. It's self-abandonment in disguise. How many times have you overextended yourself just to be the good one? You went out of your way to help co-workers, even when your own work was piling up. You listened to people vent for hours, even though no one ever asked how you were doing. You gave and gave, thinking it would come back around, but instead, all you got was exhaustion and emptiness. Because when people get used to your over-friendliness, they stop seeing it as generosity and start seeing it as your job. That's not friendship. That's unpaid emotional labor. Being nice doesn't mean being silent. Being generous doesn't mean being spineless. Sometimes the most powerful form of self-love is learning how to say "I can't" without guilt. I don't agree without apology. I matter too without flinching. Your friendliness should be a gift, not a discount on your boundaries. You weren't born to be everyone's safe space while you live in a storm. In romantic relationships, friendliness can become a trap. You wanted to be the cool girl, the understanding one, the forgiving one, so you let things slide. You laughed off the disrespect. You tolerated the emotional absence. You accepted crumbs and called it a feast. But love without respect isn't love. It's manipulation, wearing a smile. When someone starts treating your kindness as weakness, it's time to remind them. You're not soft because you lack strength. You're soft because you choose compassion. But you will never choose to lower your standards to stay lovable. Even in friendships, it happens. You become the therapist, the fixer, the one who's always there. But the moment you need something, suddenly they're busy, unavailable, or offended that you dare to ask for support. That's when you learn. Your friendliness should not be a mask that hides your needs. It should be a mirror that reflects mutual care. Real friends don't drain you. They fill you. They notice when your smile is forced. They respect your silence. They don't just take. They give too. And in your family, yes, even there, don't confuse obedience with love. Just because someone is older doesn't mean they're always right. Just because they're related doesn't mean they're entitled to your time, your choices, or your emotional peace. You can be respectful without being submissive. You can be kind without tolerating manipulation. You can set boundaries. and still love deeply. Love doesn't mean letting someone walk all over you. It means walking side by side, with mutual respect lighting the path. You are allowed to be kind and fierce, friendly and firm, warm-hearted and unshakably self-respecting. You are allowed to take up space, say enough, and walk away from anything that asks you to shrink in the name of being liked. Stop confusing people-pleasing with politeness. Start recognizing that your voice matters just as much as your smile. Friendliness is beautiful, but when it begins to silence your truth, blur your boundaries, or erase your worth, it's no longer friendliness. It's self-erasure. Be generous, yes. Be kind, always. But never forget, the moment friendliness costs you your self-respect, the price is far too high. Because if being liked means losing who you are, what exactly are they liking? A version of you that doesn't exist anymore? Or a performance that's slowly killing the real you inside? Be the person who loves deeply, laughs loudly, and shows up fully. But also be the person who walks away boldly when kindness is mistaken for compliance. Be the one who gives from overflow, not emptiness. And above all, be the kind of friendly that still leaves your crown firmly on your head, never at someone else's feet. Mysterious is magnetic. In a world where everyone is oversharing, open posting, and over-explaining, the one who holds back, even just a little, becomes unforgettable. There's power in not telling your entire story up front. There's something deeply alluring about a person who doesn't lay all their cards on the table the moment they walk into the room. Why? Because mystery invites curiosity, and curiosity is powerful. Think about it. The movies that keep you on the edge of your seat are the ones where you don't know how it ends. The characters you fall hardest for in books are the ones with secrets, layers, and unexpected depth. It's the same in real life. The person who doesn't speak too much, but when they do, their words hit deep, that person becomes unforgettable. When you're mysterious, people lean in closer. They pay attention. They wonder. And in that wondering, they become drawn to you. And that kind of confidence, the quiet, self-assured kind, is the loudest presence in the room. In relationships, mystery is magnetic. You don't need to text him all day, every day. You don't need to constantly explain your worth. Let him wonder why you didn't reply immediately. Let him question where that glow is coming from. You don't need to spell it out. Let your silence say it louder. When you keep some things to yourself, you keep your power. And when someone wants to truly know you, they'll work for it. They'll earn each layer. And isn't that what you deserve? Not attention, but intention. At work, the mysterious one commands more respect. You're not the loudest in the meeting, but when you speak, everyone listens. You don't boast about your progress. You let your results make the noise. When people can't predict your every move, they watch you closer. They wonder how you do what you do. They ask questions in rooms you're not even in. That's power. Real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just exists. Calm, certain, unshakable. Even with friends, mystery makes space for deeper connection. When you don't spill every detail about your life, you give people a chance to genuinely ask, to genuinely care. Your stories don't become gossip. They become gold. When you stop giving everyone front row seats to your private thoughts, you start building a circle that earns access, not expects it. You learn to differentiate between those who want you and those who want to know you for their own agenda. And within yourself, that's where the greatest mystery lies. You're not even fully aware of your own depths yet. You're still discovering pieces of you that surprise even you. That part of you that surprise even you. Let that be your superpower. You don't have to know all the answers. You don't have to explain your transformation. Just evolve in silence. Build in silence. Win in silence. Let the world feel the shift, not hear the announcement. There is something beautifully magnetic about a woman who knows herself but doesn't feel the need to prove it to anyone. They'll ask, "What's her secret?" And you'll smile. Because you know the truth. Your mystery is your magic. Your silence is your strength. Your privacy is your peace. You don't need to reveal everything to be relevant. You don't need to explain your worth. You're not a puzzle to be solved. You're a masterpiece that reveals itself in time to those who are patient, present, and pure in intention. And that is what makes you unforgettable. So now I want you to pause for a moment and breathe. Not because you're tired, but because you're finally awake. You're not too much for this world. You've just been pouring your energy into people who were never deep enough to hold it. You've been showing up with heart, soul, and fire, only to be met with silence, convenience, or worse, disrespect. But let me tell you something today. Something that should echo in your mind every time you question your worth. You are not difficult. You are divine. You are not rude. You are rare. And the moment you stop being too friendly is the moment you begin being truly free. You don't have to shrink to be digestible. You don't have to smile when your soul is breaking. You don't have to keep explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. The world doesn't need a softer version of you. It needs the version that remembers her power. As Priyanka once said, I don't want to be someone else. I want to be me, and I want to be the best version of myself. Let that version rise now. The version of you who no longer gives everyone access to your sacred energy. The version of you who knows her silence can shake rooms louder than any scream. The version of you who doesn't need to prove anything, but commands everything. Let people misunderstand you. Let them wonder where you went. Let them gossip, speculate, assume. Because while they talk, you walk. You walk toward purpose, toward power, toward peace. You don't owe explanations for your evolution. You owe it to yourself to evolve fearlessly, unapologetically, relentlessly. You are not meant to be liked by everyone. You are meant to be respected by the right ones. And when you stop giving discounts on your time, your soul, your truth, you stop attracting chaos and start aligning with clarity. And if they say you've changed, smile. Because yes, you have. You've changed into a woman who knows she doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Into a woman who realized that no is a complete sentence. Into a woman who finally understood. Being mysterious isn't playing games. It's protecting your magic. They called you emotional? Good, because emotion is power when you own it. They said you're distant? Beautiful. Because not everyone deserves your closeness. They said you're intimidating? Perfect. Because you're not here to soothe fragile egos. You're here to stand in truth. Start being the woman who doesn't chase, but attracts. Who doesn't blend in, but becomes the standard. Say less, show more. Move in silence and let success make the announcement. You're not heartless. You're healed. You're not arrogant. You're aware. You're not cold. You're just tired of burning for people who wouldn't even spark a match for you. The ones who truly see you will never ask you to dim your light. The ones who truly value you will never expect you to bleed to keep them warm. And the ones who deserve your energy will feel it even in your silence. Because that's what true presence is. It's not always seen, but it's always felt. So be magnetic. Be mysterious. Be kind, but not at the cost of your voice. Be loving, but not at the expense of your boundaries. Be light, but not for people who live in shadows by choice. Because at the end of the day, the most dangerous woman is not the loudest in the room. It's the one who chooses peace over panic, silence over noise. And that woman is you.